motherfucking house. Got 5 beautiful viewers out there. We're getting down today. You know what I mean? Like, let's get it. Bring it down. I said, excuse me. Pardon me. Pardon me. Yo. Get out my motherfucking way. Excuse me. Pardon me.
Excuse me. Hmm.
Time will come when with elation
To the mighty tattoo. Well, it was fun hanging out with you guys, but I need to go hang out with my tattoo. Take it easy.
arriving at your own door.
And counting. And counting.
In your own mirror, and each will smile. The others will come and say, sit here, please.
Yeah, you lived enough years in life without a tattoo on your face.
Again,
Maybe I'd get one, but I don't feel like I'm deserving of a tattoo yet.
the stranger who was
I haven't lived enough.
sad.
So you gotta really be a warrior.
Dear friend, give back your heart to itself. To the stranger who has loved you
just want to say, I've been streaming for like 3 years, 2 months, and 7 hours. So far, I don't regret it. So far. It's too early to tell.
Nearer death, prove that bodies lovers have such exacting breath that they
That look of disappointment in yourself. Self, 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 self.
every touch they give love is nearer death, prove that
I want to report this guy for bot viewing himself. I want to report this guy for bot viewing himself. I want to report this guy for bot viewing himself. Unbelievable. Unfucking believable. Unfucking believable.
elaborate and godly, your only enormous need is to manipulate life.
Fire, fire, fire. Lit. Concentre yourself. Concentre yourself. Concentre yourself.
Elaborate and ugly, your only enormous need is to manipulate lives, chain these stairs and rainbows on thousands. You deprive the weak of fathomless cruelty, your constant shrieking refusal lays bare your soulless denial.
Oh yeah. Not a bad idea.
Don't believe that we breathe the same air. You deprive the weak of Clenched in a fist, I open my palm to
Oh man.
find no more fury, just
I used to listen to this album a lot.
lines and lines and calluses. My palm is guided to my cheek.
Fucking amazing.
My hair against the pulse, face the dying, withering rage. They'll never see me no more than a solitary woman. soft as rain, lightning eyes free of blame. In a little house, drenched in a fist, I open my palm to find no more glory, just lines and lines and lines and calluses.
Go fish.
Three, two. This is live, ladies and gentlemen, and this is a very unusual podcast we're going to have here, and a very unusual discussion. I have to my left Michael Shermer, very famous skeptic. He's been on the podcast before. Of course, Randall Carlson, amazing gentleman who knows far too much about terrifying things like asteroids. And Graham Hancock, author, also fantastic human being, many times been on this podcast as well. And this all came out of a podcast that Randall and Graham and I did
Did they
recently, and Michael Shermer commented
there was a mistake there. Watch.
like asteroids,
Hold on, let's see if there's a
3, 2. This is live, ladies and gentlemen, and this is a very unusual podcast we're going to have here, and a very unusual discussion. I have to my left Michael Shermer, very famous skeptic. He's been on the podcast before. Of course, Randall Carlson.
Who's that?
Land animals that happened somewhere around the end of the Ice Age, and the end of the Ice Age, like asteroids. Podcast we're going to have here, and a very unusual discussion. I have to podcast we're going to have here, like asteroids and
Damn.
land animals.
Try to get a
that
26-second
happened somewhere around the end of the Ice Age.
clip. 21 seconds. I've got to go with
Podcast we're going to have here, and a very unusual discussion. I have to my left Michael Shermer, very famous skeptic. He's been on the podcast before. Of course, Randall Carlson, amazing gentleman who knows far too much about terrifying things like asteroids. And Graham Hancock, author, also fantastic human being, many times been on this podcast as well. And this all came out of a podcast that Randall and Graham and I did recently, and Michael Shermer commented on it, and it was all essentially on the hypothesis that the great extinction that happened with the North American land animals that happened somewhere around the end of the Ice Age, and the end of the Ice Age, the abrupt end of the Ice Age, being caused, please correct me if I fuck any of this up, being caused by a comet impact. Michael Shermer had some questions about that, and we said this would be an amazing podcast to get everybody together in a room and go over this. Since then, there's been some interesting stuff that's happened. Well, I thought this was really fascinating that Forbes has a mainstream article in Forbes, did a comet wipe out Ice Age megafauna? And this is actually from just a couple of weeks ago. And then there was also this interpretation that's fairly recent as well about one of the stone tablets, one of the stone carvings, rather, on Göbekli Tepe. And Graham, you would probably be the best to describe that.
Yeah, that was published in Mediterranean Archaeology and Archaeometry, peer-reviewed journal, by a couple of scientists from the University of Edinburgh. And they are proposing an interpretation of the Göbekli Tepe imagery. There's quite a lot of imagery on those T-shaped pillars, particularly one pillar, Pillar 43 in Enclosure D. And their deduction, what they take from their interpretation, of course many will disagree with them, their interpretation is that those images are speaking of the comet impact. They're speaking of a comet that hit the Earth roughly 12,900 years before our time.
And Randall, this has been something that you've been obsessed with for many, many years now. We've documented it and detailed it in many conversations that we've had on the podcast.
Yes. Now, I can't say that I'm that familiar with that article. I haven't had a chance to get into it. So
but this
I can't-
idea that the comet impact is what has caused the end of the ice age.
Well, it's so complex, but now what we do is we throw some type of an impact into the mix, and it seems to fill gaps
Pull this right up to you.
It seems to fill gaps that were, at this point, still unexplained. There's varying theories between some extent of climate change and some extent of human predation that caused the extinction. And I've always felt like you can't blame it on one or the other. I think humans probably had a role, but only in the very final stages of the extinction event. And one of the scenarios would certainly suggest that there were extreme climate changes between what's called the Balling-Alarod, which was the rather gradual warming at the very end of the Pleistocene, which was then followed by the Younger Dryas, which was the return to full glacial cold, and then the end of the Younger Dryas, which is dated at about 11,600, which is considered now to be the boundary of the Holocene. Post Younger Dryas, pre-Boreal it's called, would be the beginning of the Holocene. And it seems that most of the extinctions did occur between roughly 13,000 and 11,600 years ago, although the dating has a wide spread on it, so you can't pinpoint it down to a specific event. But I've always felt like that there had to be something we needed to look at that triggered the extreme climate changes that we do see at the end of the Ice Age. And to my opinion, you can't attribute that solely to Milankovitch theories, which is basically the changing solar terrestrial geometries, because they're too slow. And what we see at the end of the Ice Age were very rapid climate changes. And so one of the things that I think has been missing has been the trigger. Wallace Brecker pointed out years ago that possibly a major flood from the draining of Lake Agassiz caused an interruption of the thermohaline circulation, which is basically the circulation of the North Atlantic Ocean, and that this might have been what triggered the Younger Dryas and then also contributed to the mass extinction events. But now I think that the dating of the draining of Lake Agassiz is too
I eat like a
late,
fucking animal, Bill.
and was probably a latter event within the overall melting phenomena that occurred between roughly 14,600 and about 11,000 years ago. Somewhere in there we have to fit that mass extinction event, and I definitely have thought that climate change was the dominant factor in that. But then what triggered the climate change? That always seemed to me to be something that was not ever really explained. The comet impact theory is very controversial, but the evidence has been steadily mounting now for a decade.
Including physical evidence, right? Like the core samples that show nuclear glass scattered out throughout Asia and Europe at roughly the same time period when they do the core samples.
Yes, most of it's dated to 12,800 to 13,000 years ago.
These are called impact proxies.
Yeah.
Impact proxies.
Nanodiamonds, melt glass, microspherules. These kind of things are associated with impact, not necessarily always caused by impact. So this has been part of the reason for the controversy, but it's the abundance of all of these at a particular level which leads a large group of scientists to feel that we have had a comet impact in the past.
It's
Now-
the full assemblage of things that is difficult to explain by processes without invoking some type of a cosmic event.
And it also corresponds with what you believe is a period where Earth travels through a series of comets.
Well, this gets us to the ideas of what would be called the British neocatastrophists, Victor Klube and William Napier and a number of others that have theorized that from time to time Earth encounters the debris from a large disintegrating comet. And there's an interesting, William Napier addresses this in an interesting article I can pull up here pretty soon, that possibly around 13,000 years ago, Earth may have encountered some of the debris from a disintegrating comet, which ultimately goes back to Fred Whipple, who is one of the godfathers of cometary science.
Could I just come in on that for a second? I mean, specifically, Bill Napier, Victor Klube are identifying the remnants of this comet with the Taurid meteor stream, which is familiar, I think, to everybody. We pass through it twice a year. We see meteorites, particularly at the end of October, early November. That debris stream is still there. It still contains, according to their argument, bits of the comet. There are large objects in it, like Comet Encke, Rudnicki, Oggiato, and so on, 4 or 5 kilometers in diameter. And the suggestion is that the meteor stream, it's got lots of small bits of dust, but it's got some larger stuff too, and some of that stuff fell out of the meteor stream 12,800 years ago and impacted primarily the North American ice cap.
Now, Michael, when you listened to that podcast, you had some questions. You are a professional skeptic, so of course you were skeptical. What are your thoughts about all this?
Yeah, let me pull back and give a bigger picture. After the podcast, I went and got the book, Magicians of the Gods, and actually I listened to it on audio. So it's, I don't know, like 16, 18 hours of Graham reading with his wonderful British accent, which, as you know, for Americans, that elevates the quality of the argument by an order of magnitude.
Yeah, that's how they sell things in infomercials over here.
And Graham, you're a good writer. It's a very compelling story.
Thank you. You're a great skeptic.
You know, and so I think, you know, a number of points about, in general, the idea of alternative archaeology, which is really what we're talking about here. I prefer that to pseudo-archaeology because that's a little bit of it's supposed to be a little bit of an insult. So alternative archaeology, so it's good to remember that, so you have these guys on the podcast for 3 or 4 hours, and the audience listening thinks, yeah, why don't these guys get a fair hearing? I mean, it's like there's the mainstream and then there's these guys.
Right.
But there isn't just these guys. There's hundreds of alternative archaeological theories. So which one gets the play, which one gets attention, which one doesn't? And for a mainstream archaeologist who's busy in the field and trying to get grants and so on, they mostly just don't have the time to sort through all these alternative theories, because this is just one. And as we'll see in the next couple hours, there's hundreds and hundreds of things to be addressed. So that's kind of what we do. So just to rattle off a few: the lost tribes of Israel who colonized the Americas, Mormon archaeology, explanation of Native Americans, the Kensington runestones in Minnesota that the Vikings had come here, the Black Egyptian hypothesis. When I was in graduate school, this book called Black Athena was published, that the Egyptians were actually black, and that the sort of Western white male dominance of history had written them out of the past. So this was a whole alternative history, alternative archaeology. Piltdown Man, Thor Heyerdahl, and his hypothesis that the Polynesian islands were colonized by South Americans who went east to west. That's since been debunked, but that's yet another one of these things. South American archaeology, Olmec statues seem to have like African.
Keep talking.
on them.
I'll go back.
So maybe Africans went directly across to South America. So there's Eric Van Doniken, Zechariah Sitchin. Now, most of these Graham rejects in his book, to your credit. So you're a good skeptic too. But for an outsider, to an anthropologist from Mars who steps into this thing cold, doesn't know anything, it's like, well, they're all alternative. Which is the right one, and how do we know? And so what the way it works in science is the default position is the skeptical position. We assume your hypothesis is not true, not just you, anybody's hypothesis, like the Kluge-Napier hypothesis. That was widely published. It was widely covered in mainstream scientific journals and popular science magazines like Scientific American, and it has not fared that well over the last decade or so. It's still around. It's still debated, but so you put it in the mainstream through peer-reviewed journals, and then you go to conferences and you have it out, and that's kind of where we end up with, well, this is what we think is probably true for now, and then all these other people out here, if they don't jump into the pool where everybody is, then there's no way for an outsider to know whether these alternative things have any validity or not, other than they make a compelling case in a popular book, yes, but what do the mainstream scientists think? So, and the problem is that, so a couple of specific things, like what I call patternicity, the tendency to find meaningful patterns in random noise, the Virgin Mary on a grilled cheese sandwich or whatever. Mm-hmm. Those are fun examples, but, taking pectoglyphs and then comparing them to constellations, like, here we have some constellations on your roof here. It's easy in the mind's eye to find a pattern. The question is, did those people really think 10,000 years ago, 5,000 years? So this is a field called archaeoastronomy. Ed Krupp, the director of the Griffith Observatory here in LA, this is what he does. And sometimes he thinks the patterns mean something. Sometimes they're totally random. Or you take something like the pyramids. As Graham knows, there's 100 theories about the pyramids, and there's the mainstream one, and then there's all these other ones. And this is why people like the director there, he just can't deal with them all. So just as one example I used in my book, Why People Believe Weird Things, that one guy calculated that if you divide the height of the pyramid into twice the side of the base, you get the number close to pi. And then he just sort of works all these different numbers, so therefore it's cosmically significant.
Well, Richard Hoagland was like the best example of that,
Yes,
right? He would
Hoagland.
find these patterns in
Right.
Mars and claim that if you go from this rock to half the distance and
Right.
why would you do that? That
Right.
doesn't make any sense. He would create these patterns.
Right, and that's okay. I mean,
To make his case.
all scientists look for patterns. So, just take climate change. Either the Earth is getting warmer, or it's not. Either it's human caused or it's not. There's a pattern in the data. You can see the pattern. The question is the pattern real? So this is why we use the term climate consensus. It's not a democracy. It's not like we voted on it and decided this is the truth. It's that independently, all these different scientists working in different fields, publishing in different journals, come to the same conclusion. So we call this consilient science or convergence of evidence science. That it's not like these guys are meeting on the weekends going, boy, we got to combat those crazy right-wingers with our data. They're independently coming to these conclusions. So that lifts our confidence that, yeah, there's probably something to their theory, such that there's now so much data converting to this, you'd have to deconstruct every one of those independent lines. So then you have things like what I call the problem of the residue of anomalies. In any field, there are a residue of anomalies we can't explain. So like UFOs, for example. Ufologists, and me, a skeptic, agree that 90 to 95% of all the UFO sightings are explained by natural phenomena. Venus, swamp gas, airplanes, geese, whatever. They know that. And so we're really only talking about 5%. Like, how do you explain that one right there in 1967 on June 3rd? I don't know. No one knows that one. And then from there they build, well, that's my case. Then
Right.
if you can't explain that, then I have a case. No.
Well, that's very different than what we're talking about here.
yeah,
though,
how
right?
is that- how is that
actually,
relevant to
it's-
us here?
It's totally relevant because I think almost all of your argument is based on this residue of anomalies, what we call the God of the gaps argument. If you scientists can't explain, this particular rock right here or that particular petroglyph, then I'm going to count that toward my compilation of data to support my hypothesis of a lost civilization.
But no one is saying that the scientists can't explain it. What essentially, particularly Randall with his series of images has shown, is that what you have here is something that can be explained by rapid melting of the ice caps. And Randall, step in if you will.
Well,
Okay, go ahead if you want.
Well, they do say. I mean, it depends what you mean by rapid. A glacial dam that, as our geologists will tell us in a moment, that breaks, that's fairly rapid.
Mm-hmm.
Back in '96, there was a very popular book called The Noah's Flood. This was a serious book by two geologists that said it was the rapid filling up of the Black Sea that swamped over the civilizations living on the edges of this, and that's where the Noachian flood story comes from. Okay, so it was widely debated and so on, and since it hasn't fared that well. But that's fairly rapid. I mean, we're talking over the course of weeks or months or years. To a geologist, thousands of years is rapid.
Mm-hmm.
So, an impact by a comet, it happens in a couple hours or a couple of days or weeks versus a couple of months or years. What do we mean by rapid?
Okay, well, what are you saying then?
Okay.
So what are you saying about their theories in particular?
Okay, so the problem, I think, Graham, the deepest problem is much of your theory depends on negative evidence. That is, I don't accept the mainstream explanation for the pyramids, the Sphinx, the Machu Picchu, whatever.
Well, let's not talk about that. Let's just
And-
talk about this specific subject because it's going to take a long time just to
Yeah,
cover
okay, all right. So I'll just
asteroidal
hit into
impacts.
yeah, all right. So my final point is the falsifiability one. That is, what would it take to refute your hypothesis? Like, for me, the answer would be, like, if Göbekli Tepe turned out to be what you think it might have been, the place where advanced ancient civilization once inhabited or they used it, where are the metal tools? Where are the writing, the examples of writing?
Perhaps a decision was
are-
made not to use metal. Perhaps a decision was made that errors had taken place. That in reinventing civilization, we shouldn't perhaps go down quite the same route as before. Perhaps writing isn't always an advance. Perhaps an oral tradition which records in memory, which enhances and uses the power of memory, may be a very effective way of dealing with information. We regard writing as an advance, and I can see lots of reasons why it is an advance, but if we put ourselves into the heads of ancient peoples, maybe it wasn't. I mean, there's a tradition from ancient Egypt that the god Thoth, god of wisdom, was the inventor of writing, but we have a text in which he is questioned by a pharaoh who is saying, well, actually, have you really done a good thing by introducing writing? Because then the words may roam around the world without wise advice to put them into context, and what will happen to memory when people so there might be a choice not to go that way.
All right, but then what do you mean by advance? When you say there used to be a lost advanced civilization before 10,000 years ago,
Well, let's just
what do you
pause
mean?
here for a second, because what we know for a fact is that the carbon dating in all the area around Göbekli Tepe is somewhere around 12,000 years. Is that correct?
11,600 years ago
Okay,
is
so-
the earliest they found so far, but a great deal of Göbekli Tepe is still underground.
Right. So at least what we know is someone built some pretty impressive structures 11,600 years ago.
7,000 years before Stonehenge.
so when that story broke, this is long before you came along with your book, it was controversial in the sense that we thought hunter-gatherers could not do something like this because to do that you need a large population with a division of labor and so forth. And so what the response to archaeologists was, well, I guess we were wrong about hunter-gatherers. Maybe they can do more stuff than we gave them credit for. So why is that not a reasonable hypothesis versus it was actually advanced, but we mean something completely different by advanced, not writing and metal and technology. We mean, I don't know what you mean. What do you mean?
Well, I mean, we have a body of archaeology which goes on for decades.
What I
Which is
miss?
saying that megalithic sites, for example, Gigantea in Malta or Hagareim or Menidra, megalithic sites date to no older than 5,500 to 6,000 years old. Gigantea would push it close to 6,000 years old. And there are no older sites than that, and therefore the megalithic site is associated with a certain stage of Neolithic development. Then along comes Göbekli Tepe, 7,000 years older than Stonehenge. Incredibly sophisticated site, very large scale. I mean, Klaus Schmidt, sadly he's passed away. I spent 3 days working the site with him. He was very generous to me. He showed me a lot. He talked to me a lot. And he said basically 50 times as much as they've already excavated is still under the ground, that there's hundreds and hundreds of giant stone pillars that they've identified with ground penetrating radar. He's not even sure if they're ever going to excavate them. But by all accounts, we are looking, if we take what's still under the ground into account, we're looking at the largest megalithic site that's ever been created on Earth. And it pops up 11,600 years ago with no obvious background to it. It just comes
Well,
out
that
of
we-
nowhere. Now,
that
to
we
me,
know of.
that's rather well that we know of. But to me, that's immediately a rather puzzling and interesting situation. And I would be remiss as an author and an inquirer into these matters if I didn't take great interest in that. The sudden appearance, 7,000 years before Stonehenge, of a megalithic site that dwarfs Stonehenge. To me, that's a mystery, and it's really worth inquiring into.
We
Well,
love the
to put it
mystery,
into
yeah.
perspective, that's more than 2,000 years older than what we now consider to be the building of the Great Pyramid of Giza in comparison to us to then. So between our time now in 2017 and the construction of the Great Pyramid, you're talking about 2,000 years earlier than that. I mean, that is unbelievable when you're talking about 7,000 years before what we thought people were doing.
Okay, but my point was that instead of before we go down the road of constructing a lost civilization that was super advanced but different from our idea of advanced, why not just attribute to these fully modern hunter-gatherers who had the same size brains we have and so on, that they were able to figure out and do this? We just underestimated their abilities.
But why did archaeologists tell us for so long hunter-gatherers couldn't do it, and we needed agricultural
because they
populations that
didn't-
could generate
well,
surpluses that could pay for the
Yes,
specialists
that was
to...
the theory. But that was so now what archaeologists are saying was, I guess we were wrong about hunter-gatherers.
Well,
Yeah.
they might be wrong about hunter-gatherers, or there might be another civilization that they had not discovered that has been unearthed by
o-
time.
okay, but that's-
After,
but
sorry,
we're talking
Michael,
about so much time.
lost civilizations are not such an extraordinary idea. I mean, nobody knew that the Indus Valley civilization existed at all until some railway work was done around Mohenjo-Daro in 1923. Suddenly, a whole civilization pops up out of the woodwork that's just never been taken into account before the 1920s. We still can't read its script. You know, the idea that we come across that another turn of the spade reveals information that causes us to reconsider not just was it hunter-gatherers or agriculturalists, but perhaps something bigger than this is involved.
Or in between that.
That's not such an extraordinary idea. I get it that mainstream archaeology doesn't want to go there, but that's my job
No,
to go there.
I don't think that's correct. They would be happy to go there if there's evidence for it. By what you just said, they now fully accept the Indus Valley civilizations. How did that happen if they were dogmatically closed-minded?
I don't say that they were dogmatically closed-minded about that. The evidence, the massive amount of evidence that came up with the discovery of Mohenjo-Daro, Harappa, Dholavira, and other such sites, it's very difficult. You have to be completely stupid to say that that's not a civilization. Göbekli Tepe is a bit more nuanced. You know, we have stone circles. We have some interesting astronomical alignments. The world's first perfectly north-south aligned building.
Maybe.
No, definitely.
Again, that's a patternicity thing.
Well, I'm citing Klaus Schmidt. You know.
Well, that's all right. But any of us who read back into history 10,000 years ago, what we're thinking, that they might have been thinking, that's always dangerous for anybody, not just you, all of us.
That's a good point. Who was Klaus Schmidt?
Klaus Schmidt was the original excavator of Göbekli Tepe. He was the head of the German Archaeological Institute, DIG, at Göbekli Tepe. He kindly spent 3 days showing me around the site. And really nobody's disputing the astronomical alignments of Göbekli Tepe. They weren't particularly interesting to Klaus Schmidt, but they're there.
And what is the alignment? Like, how is it established?
Well, when you have a perfectly north-south aligned structure, perfectly north-south, to true north, not magnetic north, then you are dealing with astronomy by definition. And there are other alignments of the stone
True
circles.
north as established today, or with the precession of the equinoxes?
True north
when
is
you're talking
always
about
true
12.
north.
Okay.
It's the rotation axis of our planet.
Okay, so it to this day it points exactly in the same place where it was pointing.
It always points to true north. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah.
But back to this, they don't want to go. Sure, they want to go there. They would be happy to go there. Case in point, 2 weeks ago in the journal Nature, the most prestigious scientific journal in the world, there was published an article that humans or maybe Neanderthals lived in San Diego area 130,000 years ago. This is an order of magnitude older than the Clovis dates.
This
of
was
13,000.
the mastodon bones they found that were
Mastodon
smashed.
bones, yes.
They
So,
believe.
so here's an example of how. Okay, so clearly there's not some conspiracy to keep alternative people or fringe or radical theories out. It was published in peer-reviewed, the most prestigious journal in the world. There it is. 2
And
weeks
then
ago.
what happened?
Well,
Hasn't there been a massive reaction to that and lots of scathing remarks by
lots
other
of-
academics?
Yes, and but that's normal. That's how
Yes.
science works.
Yeah.
You get pushed back. You got to have a thick skin. It's just the way it goes.
You got to have a thick skin. That's for sure. But maybe sometimes your skin is so thick that you just can't sense anything around
Well,
you.
of course, we don't want that either. I
So
mean, we
what
want-
do you think is going on when you look at something like Göbekli Tepe that's covered up purposefully, right?
Yes,
12,000 years ago?
deliberately buried. Again, I cite Klaus Schmidt. He's the authority on this. He's the excavator. He absolutely adamantly insists that that site was deliberately buried and finally covered with a hill, which is what Göbekli Tepe means in the Turkish language, pot-bellied hill.
Yeah.
And you're talking about something. Give me the perspective of how large they believe it is currently, as of current.
What's excavated at the moment is on a scale of Stonehenge. What's under the ground may be as much as 50 times larger.
Jesus.
But at Göbekli Tepe, no one lived there. There's no tools. There's no.
Well, you're talking
they
about
don't even have- they-
12,000
But they don't even
years
have.
old, though.
But if it's buried, it should be. There should be pottery. There's no pottery, no writing, no articles of clothing. No one lived there.
Well, you're saying nobody lived there, so why should they have pottery? Why should pottery be in the fill? Why
but
would
how about-
why would they go along and break some pots and stick it in the artificial
but how
fill?
about something? They're trash when something that would indicate it's different, a different kind of people than what we're used to seeing in the archaeological record.
Well,
in other words,
Well, it's just
in other words,
rubbish that they poured in. It's just stones and earth, buckets of it.
In other words, Graham, for you to gain support for your theory amongst mainstream archaeologists, they want to see positive evidence to overturn the old theory. In other words, the burden of proof is on the person challenging the mainstream.
I completely agree.
In every field.
But isn't there some proof that the mainstream idea of these hunters and gatherers never had anything in what the theory was that would indicate these people were capable of building something even remotely the size of Göbekli Tepe?
Yeah, to me, that's the stunning beauty of this find. It overturns our ideas of primitive hunter-gatherers that could not do this. Apparently, they can. So-
That's
so
one
this is-
possible
Yeah,
assessment.
that's right. So this, I call this, somebody else calls it the bigotry of low expectations. You know, it's like we had this kind of low expectations for these hunter-gatherers. Maybe we should jettison that idea. And in my own other field of the history of religion, it also threw that off because this apparently was a kind of a spiritual, religious. That's the wrong word. They wouldn't have used.
Actually,
anything like that, but
nobody can know that. Michael.
that's right. So, but if it was, this is the big National Geographic article emphasized that. Maybe this is the very first religious spiritual temple ever built because they didn't live there, so they went there
But
for a reason.
isn't it also possible that this is signs that civilization was more advanced 12,000 years ago than we thought?
Okay, more advanced. What do we mean by
We're
advanced?
talking about the ability to construct an amazing structure.
Well, okay.
How big was it? Like,
With-
how
with-
tall were these
with us,
stone?
Some of them are 20 feet tall.
Yeah, but
Some of them are smaller with astronomical alignments. Klaus Schmidt called it a center of innovation. He was intrigued by the way that agriculture emerges around Göbekli Tepe at the same time that Göbekli Tepe is created. I mean, he went on record with me, perhaps he's not right, but he went on record with me as saying that was the first agriculture. These were the people who invented agriculture. Now, to me, the notion that a group of hunter-gatherers wake up one morning and invent megalithic architecture, the world's largest megalithic site, and at the same moment invent agriculture, stretches credulity a bit. And I think I would prefer to propose, and I have proposed, that what we're looking at is evidence of some kind of transfer of technology, that people came into that area who had other knowledge, and that was applied, and perhaps they mobilized the local population around this site. Perhaps that's precisely why we see agriculture developing there. So perhaps that's the skill that's being passed on.
But I don't see anything particularly. Okay, the stone work is spectacular, but that's not any more advanced than a few millennium afterwards.
But
where
you're
they're-
talking
they're-
about something 20 feet
but
tall, made of stone,
but we know
by
a couple
people that were
But
hunter-gatherers.
a couple hundred people can move multi-ton stones.
There's no mystery in moving the stones. They're
that's
still
right,
moving
right.
20-ton stones in Indonesia today.
Yeah,
I mean,
but the-
megalithic cultures still exist.
Right.
You also know that the carving on the outside is extremely complex. It's three-dimensional carving.
Okay, but I
But
mean,
you know that
okay,
means-
But,
but do you know what that means?
But Lascaux at 30,000 years ago has magnificent cave paintings with three-dimensional
Right, but that's
animals.
but that's painting. You know
Well,
that they.
but there's
do you
the-
know? Hold on a second.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying when I say three-dimensional carvings?
Yeah, like the Venus. De
No,
Milo.
the carvings were on the outside, meaning
Yeah.
they didn't carve them into the rock. They carved away the rock
Right,
around them,
right.
which is pretty sophisticated stuff for hunter-gatherers. And they're doing this on these 20-foot tall stone columns. I mean, it's pretty impressive stuff.
Okay, but there the assumption is that they couldn't have figured this out. We know from modern societies where, say, Australian Aborigines, in one generation, they go from stone tools to flying airplanes. The brains are quite capable of doing these amazing things.
Did
It's
they
the
go
same
from,
brain.
did
Yeah,
they
but
go
wait a
from
minute, they didn't invent
stone
them.
tools to
No, no,
flying
but-
airplanes without somebody introducing them to
Exactly.
airplanes?
Yeah, you're actually making his argument for him.
No. It's not that much of a reach to carve stone. People have been carving stones
But
for
the
thousands
entire
of years.
archaeological opinion on megalithic sites for decades before this was precisely that it was beyond their ability
Right,
to do that.
and now the mainstream has changed its
Okay,
mind
but
about
let's-
this.
let's
or
pa-
at the very least,
a
they
little
said- they-
shift.
Let's
they
pause for
said-
a moment.
yeah,
Let's pause for a moment. So, for sure, we all agree human beings made this.
Yes, not
Yes.
aliens.
Okay.
Even
so
he
the
rejects
argument,
the aliens.
so the argument
I
is
do.
not whether or not aliens made it. The argument is whether or not humans made it that were sophisticated. Well, they're clearly sophisticated enough to make this incredible structure that is some sign of some sort of civilization. I mean,
I believe so, yeah.
it is. It's a
And here I
gigantic
agree-
structure.
Here I agree with Graham that we've again undersold who these people were. My friend Jared Diamond goes to Papua New Guinea. He talks in the opening chapter of Guns, Germs, and Steel how smart these people are that live out there in nature and what it takes to survive.
Oh,
And
sure.
He wouldn't last an hour, from L.A. He wouldn't last an hour with his Papua New Guinean friends out there in the wild.
Well, that's
and
just
that-
because he doesn't know how to survive, and they've been
And they
passing
do,
down
right.
the information
That's right.
for
So
generation
they're
after
very,
generation.
Very smart. Okay, so it's not
Sure.
it's not a problem of intelligence. And is there? Okay, so here's the other thing we don't know is that there might be lots more of these sites, and where there's
There are.
a-
I
yeah.
visited one of them, Karahan Tepe. You've got the T-shaped pillars sticking out the side of a hill in a farmer's backyard. I mean, I think we're actually at the beginning of opening up this inquiry, not at the end of it by
Okay,
any
so
means.
but then before you, okay, why not just say we don't know? This is a spectacular mystery and leave it at that. Right? Why write a book that
Well,
says
you guys on
I'm
the
going to fill in all the gaps?
You
with
guys
this?
on the mainstream side won't speculate and won't explore. I don't claim to be an archaeologist. I'm not a scientist. I'm an author. It's my job to offer an alternative point of view and to offer a coherently argued alternative point of view. And I must say, Göbekli Tepe strikes me as a gigantic fucking mystery, and a mystery that is worthy of exploration from a point of view that may not satisfy you.
Oh well. it
Oh,
doesn't
shit.
Satisfy me.
You and your colleagues, and I certainly don't have to satisfy you or them. That's not my project.
But like your opening chapter with Schmidt, I thought I really loved the kind of conversational style you had with Schmidt in the book, where he's dialoguing, where Schmidt goes and look at this, and then he says, but what? Wait, what's that again? Now he's like a little bit like Columbo. Like wait, I have just one more question, and the mystery kind of thickens. That's perfectly okay. That's great. I mean, that's what science is all about, is uncovering mysteries that we then have to figure out. So there's always more mysteries, but that doesn't mean that's not positive evidence in favor of a particular theory like a lost civilization. It's just we can't explain this. Full stop.
Yeah.
We certainly can't explain it, and you can't explain it by saying that we underestimated hunter and gatherers either.
Well, why not? We know they made it. Whatever you want to call them.
Well, we know humans made it.
That's right. We know humans made it. So whatever you want to call them.
But why do they believe that people were only hunters and gatherers 12,000 years ago? It's because they didn't have any evidence to the contrary.
Right.
This is evidence to the contrary.
I agree.
So you agree that there weren't hunter and gatherers?
Okay, but there's several stages in between. Just 12 people living out in the jungle by themselves versus
Sure.
us. There's like a whole bunch of different.
Well, I would say that Göbekli Tepe is a gigantic stage.
Well, we don't. Okay, they didn't live there, so we have to figure out where were they living and what was there. So that has to be excavated.
Well, they only excavated 10% of it, right?
And meanwhile, what you're saying is that we shouldn't speculate at all, because I mean, mainstream archaeology is speculating.
No,
Mainstream
speculating
archaeology is
perfectly okay.
speculating when saying it's definitely was hunter-gatherers who did this. That's also a
That
speculation.
seems more of a reach.
Okay, but not okay. They may be more than hunter-gatherers. They may have been partially settled. You can have any kind of number of states.
But what you can't apparently have is the possibility of a transfer of technology from people who were really masters of that technology already when they came in.
But where are these people?
Well, you're dealing with an
where were their
incredible-
homes?
12,000
Where did they
years
live
ago,
12?
their
That's a long
fingerprints are
time.
there. Let's find their homes. I don't know. I don't know that their homes matter. Would their homes even survive after 12,000 years?
Well, homes.
I'm not sure.
They're trash.
But what
they're
survives?
Tools. They're something.
Well, what
Screw
would be,
trash and tools. We've got Göbekli Tepe. It confronts us. It challenges the mainstream model. I think it's reasonable to consider the possibility that there was something more than just hunter-gatherers involved here in creating this extraordinary place. And that's all I've done.
It seems to me that to say hunter-gatherers could build this, wouldn't be opposed to the idea that they're hunting and gathering, but it does certainly imply a lot of leisure time.
Yes.
A lot of leisure time.
Well, we know hunter-gatherers. Oh, sorry.
That's okay. It was like,
Well, again, if we place this back, particularly within that climate zone at 11,006 to 12,000, 13,000 years ago, whatever it turns out to be, we're dealing with an extremely demanding and challenging climate, which wouldn't necessarily, to my mind, be conducive to the emergence of a settled culture that would be capable of undertaking a project on this scale. And as somebody who's built a lot of things and moved quite a few heavy weights in my time, I find it the idea sort of perplexing to me that they would be. What I would have to ask is, what is their motive? What is their motive for undertaking a project on this scale? Because it's an enormous project, and to move a 20-ton block of stone is really a challenging task to undertake today. Well, without the infrastructure of large machines and so forth. But to do it by hand, it would be an enormous undertaking. And I, to me, it's like, when are they having time to hunt and gather when they're engaged in a project of this scale?
But we know hunter-gatherers have way more free time than modern society people do. That's the one thing we've learned, is that it's a pretty good way to make a living, actually. They have a better varied diet than we have. This is the Neanderthal diet, right? They have a better varied diet and a lot more free time.
Yeah, but that's
and
within
a lot less stress.
We knew that
So-
all along about hunter-gatherers when
Right.
we were saying they couldn't build megalithic sites.
But we're
So they have
looking
the
at
time.
a
They have the time to do it.
where the environment is undergoing rapid changes to which adaptations would be extremely challenging. And we know those changes are going on all over the planet. We know that sea levels are rapidly rising over a period of a few thousand years, from a sea stand low of about 400 feet up to the present level. We also know that biotas were shifting dramatically all over the planet. The effects of the Younger Dryas were global. Pretty much that is, I think, the emerging consensus now, that both hemispheres, north and south, were being affected by the climate changes of the Younger Dryas. So what we're doing is we're placing this phenomena, this project within this context of these extremely challenging times in which, adaptation to the environmental changes could easily be the all-consuming challenge of the times. I'm just finding it difficult to imagine a disconnect, to see this disconnect between a project of this magnitude and the motive for doing it during a time when obviously the environment could be posing serious constraints upon people's ability to function in that.
Well, Randall, we don't even know the motives of the Easter Islanders and,
No,
and
we
why
don't.
they raised these huge, but we know they did it.
But
And-
isn't
and-
that become a central question, though? What something had to have motivated them.
But let's get back
Clearly,
to Göbekli Tepe. So let's just be real clear here. We know there were humans. We know that it's at least 12,000 years old, and we know that the real dispute here, the real question is, did these people have structures and did they have agriculture? We know that they were human beings. They were essentially modern human beings. So were they hunter-gatherers, or did they have structures and
before
agriculture?
Göbekli Tepe, they didn't have structures and they didn't have agriculture.
But we
After
know
Göbekli
yeah.
Tepe, they did.
So the fact that
Yeah.
they were able to build something so monumental, what kind of a leap is it at all to think that these people could figure out how to plant food and figure out how to make a house?
Well, I mean, again, if you look back 30,000 years, 40,000 years to these cave paintings, these are pretty sophisticated.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
They are.
Clearly, they had abstract reasoning. They could think from the concrete to the abstract and so on. It's not a big reach to go from that to moving stones around.
I'd say there's a big difference between painting and engraving on
Yeah.
cave walls.
I don't think so. I
And
need to see-
creating,
To me, the painting is even
sorry,
more
and creating the
sophisticated.
largest megalithic site that's ever been built on Earth.
Wait a minute.
I think there's a huge difference between those two. I mean, nobody would compare the construction effort on Stonehenge or Gigantea with cave paintings. I agree with you. The cave paintings are magnificent. I've had the privilege to visit many of the painted caves. Stunning work. And as Picasso said when he came out of Lascaux, we have invented nothing.
Right,
I mean, they were
right.
that was that modern human mind, symbolic mind at
Right.
work there. But this is another matter. This is a large-scale construction project that's going on, and it's not just a construction project. It's not like huts. It's hundreds and hundreds of very, very large megalithic pillars which have to be mobilized, brought to the place. Organizing a workforce in order to do that, even that requires preparation and time and learning and practice. It's not something that you wake up one morning and just can do overnight.
You think that the paintings are more impressive than Göbekli Tepe?
Yeah, or at least comparable.
I think
because
that's absolutely
because
ridiculous.
To convey three-dimensionality on a 2D plane, that's what Picasso meant. It's like, wow, that's incredible. It's like developing perspective, and to use the natural shape
But
of
it's
the
just
walls
but it's not.
to create a three-dimensional perspective look that's pretty abstract.
You're comparing
It is-
apples and pears. It's not a
yeah.
construction project.
Okay,
It's,
so
it's not. I don't think
we
it's
don't
even
have to compare
remotely.
them.
But I don't think it's even remotely
But
as
what
impressive.
I'm saying is that it doesn't take a huge leap of the imagination to think these people were pretty smart. They had
well, we know
abstract
that they were
reasoning and
smart.
stuff.
We
Yeah.
know what they were smart
No
just
dispute.
because of the fact that those construction projects were done by who? By whoever. We know that they were smart. Whoever built Göbekli Tepe was clearly intelligent. Whoever made those 3D carvings,
Right.
clearly they were intelligent. But to think that someone drawing on cave paintings is more impressive
Not more
than
impressive,
erecting
just-
20-foot stone columns
okay.
with three-dimensional carvings on them of a lot of animals that weren't even native to the region.
That's
So-
Is
yeah,
that
so-
not
debatable?
necessarily the case.
Yeah.
Because they could have been
The
extinct
animals were
fossil
native to-
record.
But my point,
native to the
Joe,
region.
is that these paintings are like, say, 30, 40,000 years old to Göbekli Tepe. So there's tens of thousands of years to develop more that we're very likely to find more archaeological sites.
And yet,
between those
up till
sites.
now, we haven't found that. We haven't found all of that intermediate material. Which sees, see, if I could actually see that intermediate material between the upper Paleolithic cave art and Göbekli Tepe, if I could see the gradual evolution and development of skills, I wouldn't need to invoke a lost civilization, the survivors of a lost civilization who've mastered those skills elsewhere to come in and teach those skills at Göbekli Tepe, but it still looks to me like a transfer of technology unless you can show me that evolutionary process whereby I can understand how this group of hunter-gatherers became equipped to create this giant site, where they practiced, where they learned the skills to move the stones, to organize the workforce, to feed and water the workforce in a rather dry place. All of that is actually quite a logistical challenge.
Yep. And obviously somebody met it somehow.
Some humans.
Yes,
right. So the
right,
real question
right.
is, did they have structures? Did they have agriculture? Did they have some sort of a
Probably-
community where they lived in an
probably
established
something like that.
location?
I would imagine
So that would push back the time where we thought that there was a civilization. That would push them back into a realm of at least stepping out of the hunter-gatherer stage.
Now,
correct?
your guy Schmid, as you show in your book, he did not go as far as you go.
Certainly not.
Right.
No.
But he admitted it's a mystery. Okay, why? That would be the scientific approach. I don't know what it is. Great mystery. Let's just wait and see. Versus, I'm going to postulate a lost civilization. Nothing wrong with that, Graham. Free country, and scientists do this all the time, as you've mentioned.
There's,
so
there's
this-
a rather humorous thing, which I have to say. Actually, I might even ask Jamie to pull up the couple of images of Fingerprints of the Gods. That's the book I'm best known for. And when I published Fingerprints of the Gods in 1995, essentially I was saying civilization is much older and much more mysterious than we thought. And I was ridiculed for proposing that. 2013, one of the magazines that ridiculed me, New Scientist magazine in Britain, publishes as a cover story picture of Göbekli Tepe and the headline, civilization is much older and much more mysterious
all
than,
right, fair enough,
we thought.
Fair enough. Okay, fair enough. And scientists do this. I mean, I've followed paleoanthropology for my whole adult life. And one of the big mysteries is, how did we get a big brain? How do we get to abstract reasoning from say, what chimps can do? No one knows.
The doubling of the human brain size over a period of
okay,
2 million years,
and
right?
because no one knows, every couple of years there's a new book out. It's climate change. It was
The throwing arm, cooking
that's
food.
right, cooking meat. You know, meat is another big one. A Harvard meat. Okay, and these books come and go, and some of them have legs, some of them don't, and it's just the way it goes.
And then there's Terence McKenna's
Pretty
theory.
obvious it was psychedelics.
Yeah, that's Terence McKenna's
Not that
stoned
made the
ape
brain
theory.
bigger, but that switched the brain
is this
on.
the old Julian?
Julian Jaynes, no, the
no.
bicameral mind, not at all. This is David Lewis Williams, who's professor of anthropology at the University of Witwatersrand in South Africa. His neuropsychological theory of cave art. All kudos to Terence McKenna and Food of the Gods. What a brilliant thinker, what a brilliant alternative thinker. But David Lewis Williams at the University of Witwatersrand has been working on this problem since 1973, and his argument is that the remarkable similarities that we see in rock and cave art all around the world are explained that we're dealing with a shamanistic art. Shamanism involves altered states of consciousness. This is typical visions of altered states of consciousness, and it seems to have accompanied a great leap forward in human behavior.
And
As
you
does-
covered this in your book,
I covered it in Supernatural.
Supernatural.
As did Richard Wrangham's theory. This is a highly regarded scientist at Harvard. So he's the meat eating guy. That it's
Right.
cooking meat.
Right.
So by cooking the protein, that's what gives you the energy to build a huge brain. All right. So now this guy is starting with 10 pluses on his side. He's Harvard and already
Right.
respected, and even so, his book was like, maybe.
Well, it's probably a series of different events and a bunch of
It
different
could
factors.
be. That's right. Could be a number
Right.
of different things.
So let's get away from Göbekli Tepe and ancient civilizations, and let's get back to the geological evidence, which, Randall, you're an expert at. And this is one of the main things that you had a dispute with, and this is one of the reasons why we got everybody together. Now, what is your thoughts on what Randall and Graham proposed, specifically Randall, who is much more on the geological side of things?
Yeah. Well, this is why I brought in my phone a friend,
Right.
a geologist. So, but by way of background, after your show, I thought, let's just give this a fair hearing. This is what we do. So this will be our cover story, and I think the end of summer issue comes out. We're only quarterly.
I hope that Mark Defant is going to be doing some more work on the draft of his article for you that is up online, because that article is full of bullshit statements about me which are demonstrably false.
Well, he's on.
Yeah,
here,
he's
so
there, and
you
I'm
can-
happy
you
to.
can
I'm happy
ask
to
him.
engage
What
with those
statements, Graham?
particular issues. Well, I'll have to put on my reading glasses.
And that whatever article's online, this has not been published yet.
Well,
so
it
this is-
claims that it's a draft of the article that will appear in the 2017 edition of Skeptic magazine.
So pull it up, Graham, and
Sure.
Why
give
don't we
you a
bring
chance to
Mark
have your
on
time
and,
in court.
Yeah.
Let's let Graham go over it first, and
So-
then we'll have Mark on.
So
to
here's
refute what he said.
Defant on Magicians of the Gods. And by the way, Michael, I mean, you say that you're here to, to respectfully aim to get at the truth.
Yeah.
There it is, conjuring
let
up
me-
a lost civilization from
Yeah,
nothing.
let me just get to the top of this. I've got it here. Just bear with me a second. So, amongst the words in Mark Defant's article, he is accusing me of duping the public. He's saying that I'm public enemy number one. He's accusing me of arm waving. I admit I do wave my arms. Pontificating. Well, my grandfather was a minister of the church. Little interest in peer-reviewed research. Claimed that no academic would debate. That's utter bullshit. I had a debate with Zahi Hawass. He's a leading Egyptian Egyptologist. Back in 2015, it was not my fault that Zahi Hawass walked out on that debate. I can play the video if you like, a minute and a half of Zahi Hawass lambasting me and then walking out and refusing to debate further. So it's bullshit to say I don't debate or I'm not willing to debate. And finally, he says that I'm conning a hellacious number of people into buying his books. Now, how can we get any dialogue going when somebody begins like that? And
Okay.
then would you like some further? Bear with me, because I just have to scroll down and I don't have a mouse. I don't have a mouse. So Hancock and Carlson claimed several times that no academic would debate them. Not true. I'm accused of doing an about face since Fingerprints of the Gods. Are my views not allowed to evolve with new evidence? Is that somehow a
Well, I think
crime on my part? Let me just finish.
Yep.
Then a cheap shot. He cites Jesus Gamara. And accuses me of not having the scientific knowledge to deal with issues of gravitation. Now, it's true that Jesus Gamara, who is a descendant of the Incas, who has worked 70 years on the megaliths of Sacsayhuaman, whose father before him, Alfredo Gamara, worked 70 years. It's true that he's got a way-out theory about gravitation. Thing is, I state in my book that it's a way-out theory. What I go on to say, quoted in the attack, is that, however, this isn't the part of his theory I'm interested in. Where I feel he is solidly persuasive is in his observations of the anomalous character of the monuments of the Andes, etc., etc. Defant doesn't cite that. He just presents me as buying what Jesus Gamara says. I mean, if that's the standard that you're going to have in Skeptic magazine, you have a serious problem. And then Göbekli Tepe, he contends that Göbekli Tepe is too advanced to have been completed by hunter-gatherers and must have been constructed by a more advanced civilization. Well, no, that's not what I say. I say it was constructed by hunter-gatherers, but that they were advised and supported by people who had knowledge of this kind of work beforehand.
How is that different?
Well, I think it's very different. I'm not saying it was constructed by. I'm saying that a group of people settled amongst hunter-gatherers and transferred some skills for them. He says that, he quotes me, Hancock makes the following stunning claim, quote, "Our ancestors are being initiated into the secrets of metals and how to make swords and knives." I do not make that claim. I'm reporting that this claim is made in the Book of Enoch. That is not my claim. Then what else?
So you don't think that's the explanation?
Well, I'm being misrepresented by your author here.
But I mean, all right, but-
If he wants to represent me, if he accuses me of cherry picking, he shouldn't cherry pick my statements. He should
we're
quote it
still
in full
working on
context.
this. Let's get it right.
Well, it's
So
out
you
there.
Don't, you don't
it's
accept
out
it.
there on the
online.
internet.
No, well,
He's still working
oh,
on it,
and
but
then-
it's
and then
published
here's a-
online.
no,
Here's a
I
beautiful
didn't-
one.
I didn't know it was online.
Here's a beautiful one. He cites Klaus Schmidt on the character. Schmidt makes a salient point, almost as if he anticipated Hancock's book. Quote, "Fabulous or mythical creatures such as centaurs or the sphinx, winged bulls or horses, do not yet occur in the iconography, and therefore in the mythology of prehistoric times. They must be recognized as creations of the high cultures which arose later." Well, bullshit, bullshit, bullshit. You've just been talking about the painted caves. Go to Chauvet Cave. You'll see a lion man, Hohensteinstadel, lion man carved out of mammoth ivory. Go to Chauvet, bison man, straddling lion woman. Her right arm is transforming into the head of a lion. So certainly these mythical creatures did exist in the Upper Paleolithic, and it's rubbish to say that they didn't. I mean, how can I go on? The teapot. Oh yeah. Okay, so he's taking issue with me because I suggest that the vulture on Pillar 43 in Enclosure D is representing the teapot asterism of the constellation of Sagittarius. And he goes and gives us little things of Uncle Sam and some other thing that he shows. Anybody can impose any image on anything. Well, it's not my fault that a couple of academics who didn't even talk to me and had nothing whatsoever to do to me have published a major study in the, I quote it again, the Mediterranean Archaeology and Archaeometry, a peer-reviewed journal, where they make precisely that identification. So at least I'm not alone. At least there are peer-reviewed credentialed scholars who also agree that that figure is representing the teapot asterism within the constellation of Sagittarius. No reference to that. Schock's opinions, we're supposed to not go into the minutiae because they've already been dismissed by a study by Liritsis and Vafiadou. Far from it. That study doesn't dismiss Schock at all. None of that study was done on the body of the Sphinx itself. It was done in the valley and the Sphinx temples. And by the way, the dates are extremely troubling. Some of them could push it as far as 3600 BC that the work was done, or as early in some cases as 1000 BC. I don't think that study proves anything, and so on and so
just
forth.
to clarify what you do believe then, so that we don't misrepresent you, so you don't think that the lost civilization instructed them on the use of metals?
I don't know. I don't see evidence for that in Göbekli
but
Tepe.
why would you put that in the book then?
I didn't put it in the book. I was quoting the Book of Enoch. It's a huge passage on the Book of Enoch. It's me, not me who's saying that. It's the Book of Enoch that's saying that.
I understand, but why? I forget
All I
what the context.
all I require your defant to do is to state that Hancock is citing the Book of Enoch. He didn't do that.
Okay.
That is
all
what's
right,
the
fair
what's
enough,
the
that's
word?
fine, fair enough,
Disingenuous, is that the polite word you guys use?
But
It seems more than disingenuous. It's a character assassination.
well, but what the question is why would? What's the context of including that in your book? I forget.
Well, the context is that actually I was criticizing Zachariah Sitchin. That's primarily what I was doing.
So you don't think that a lost civilization instructed the people who built Göbekli Tepe on the use of metals and tools?
I see no evidence for that. I see Göbekli Tepe. I can't go say they instructed them on the use of
When
metals
somebody
and tools
asks-
unless I can find evidence
Well,
for
so
it.
what did they do?
we don't know.
They generated agriculture. They
Okay.
created a center of excellence around which a
No, not
hunter-gatherer...
they who built Göbekli Tepe. The lost civilization that advised them that you think happened.
Yeah.
What did they do if they?
They've come through a cataclysm. They're survivors, few in number. This is my scenario. You don't have to accept it. I'm sure you don't. They take refuge amongst hunter-gatherers.
How much a
I mean,
judge
I don't
puts
know,
that
you'll
song?
probably have some survival skills. I don't have many. I mean, if we were to have a comet impact in the world today,
How much would it
which were
pay?
to take out
And what
all
kind
the
of sad song you
underpinnings
want?
of modern civilization, I might go settle with hunter-gatherers because they're the people who know best how to
That's
live
where I would
in
go.
that
I have no
situation.
survival skills.
Yeah, except
I would
go
just
settle
play you
amongst
one if you
hunter-gatherers, but I
just
might
wanna
be
hear
able
one.
to transfer some of my knowledge to them. I might have something that I could transfer to them, and I might have very strong reasons why I might not choose to transfer all of it.
But so, in other words, perhaps this is what happened. Okay, maybe. But how is that different from
Right where you're going in the dark, I can't see you
JC is sad.
when you're far away.
Let's hear this one.
Cages were meant to break.
I'm just shirtless.
This wonderful world is only what you make it of.
Oh, and my pants are all open, but it has nothing to do with you. Double dipping. It's in real life. Anything goes. And everything goes. Till it don't go no more. Oh yeah. Exposure to personality. One in reaction. A desire for intercommunication. Character can be internal, though. Good point, JC. Good point. Could be. The way a person reacts can be telling of their experience. There is a matter of... Shut up! Stop singing for a second. I need to have a conversation here. Let's put an instrumental one. I love what my brother did with this too. If it would load. And this is where the lab stops working. I think different people want different things from different people. You know, it could not just... Pain and suffering could only be one fragment of the picture. In comedy, what are you getting? You're getting joy. You're bringing light, you're lighting it up. And lighten the room. Well, what's the motivation to be a titty streamer? It's a very egotistical motive. It's a motivation inspired by ego. What's the term? Trying to think of a term. But almost the simplest form of entertainment, something along those lines. But like me too, you know, if I go like this, hey, you know what I mean? It's unexpected also for me, you know. This guy's showing his nipple, you know. But I ain't asking for money for that. I'm just trying to be comfortable, baby. I think money as a result of attention is welcoming. No shame, no shade. They may be happy now, but eventually they're gonna have to change, right? Something's gonna have to evolve. Can't be happy doing the same thing forever. Maybe the feelings will change. Maybe the body will change, and it won't bring as much money and attention. And then you're forced to change. No, it's not on iTunes. It used to be on Bandcamp. It's not there anymore either. Follow on YouTube, listen for free. Like what my brother did with Cynthia. Yeah. Yeah, these are my songs. My buddy Fern played bass, drums, and guitar. And my brother did some synth stuff, strings. And we all did it from our own locations. He's in Fernando's in California. My brother's in Pennsylvania. And I'm over here. And I'm over here. Sometimes it seems like it's okay. Sometimes it could be better. Nice, 20 bucks. Nice, thank you, Hooters. It seems like everybody could care. I don't think I need to guess. Yeah. Kind of for fun. I don't really, I'm not one to market myself. I'm not one to, I haven't done a lot of shows, which I need to do more of. It's a little pitchy at times. Living is fun. Amen, JC. I think if I had a bunch of people that I played with, I would be doing it. You know, I would be doing more. Looking at time passing by, I'm still alive, losing my mind. Wonder how I ever survived. Scent of a beauty whispers me today, leaves me left the same. Right, the meow meow. Right on, man. Right on. She was the one for me, I believe. She was the one for me. Everything's Yeah, and a bunch of stuff that we did. But JC's heard the shit way too many times, so I'll just play the one that I want to hear right now. Let me just kick my computer and it'll start working. I shouldn't. Right, JC? Totally over, man. Yeah, JC. That's my man right there, JC. He's been here from like probably the first stream, I think. I don't think he's missed a stream. And if he has missed a stream, it was probably for good reason. Either he had something to do, or it was just a really bad night for me. Yeah, I do. I got it on Google Drive. Is your email from the? Is your email from the? Shut up, song. From the PayPal accurate? Yeah, I'll send you something. I mean, if you want to send more money, I'm not going to tell you not to. You know, to make money from music would be a good thing. If you make money from your music, then I don't have to be a pizza maker. But you know, the one person can't fund one other person's life, right? I'm just saying. I'll send you a link. You tell me what you want, and I'll put it in there. I'll send you a folder. There's good stuff and there's a lot of bad stuff. But the point I'm making is that I'm not going to turn away dollars. I'm not going to put a price on it. You got to put a price on it. And hopefully hopefully you're not paying more than you're comfortable paying. But I'd be more than happy to send you a link. That's all I'm saying. Just give me a moment though, because I'm comfortable. I can't open my email on the stream. Man, I'm getting so excited from all this attention, and I might show my titties. I mean, I don't mean like that. I don't mean my. Then I'll just be more than happy to take what you want to give and continue to make my living doing the things that makes me money for my time. And then essentially nothing changes from where it's at now. Really? I could figure it out. Maybe how. In fact, I may even have a couple examples. I guess that seems like that too specific of a time. I remember that stream though. There was a Crowboat clip from that stream. I'd probably have to go into the videos that are not allowed on YouTube. What the hell is this fucking videos on there? 10 hours. That was a good one.
Can you fill it with nachos
That
and
is hot.
cheese and then put it on your head? How much would that?
Keep it
Some of the best I've had is Texas. I don't know if it's Texas, but
Falling down the rabbit hole. Remember the projector?
You still got your boombox? Play something and turn it way up.
I'm gonna turn it down actually a little bit.
Fuck you. I don't want to deal with your shit no more. I am not gonna deal with your shit no more. Fuck you. And fuck you. Fuck you. And fuck you. Fuck you. And fuck you. I'm not gonna deal with your shit no more. I'm not gonna deal with your shit no more. I hope you fall inside a pit and jump lion eats you into shit. And then you wake up and you smell like shit. 'Cause you're shit. That's right, you're shit. You're shit.
Thank you. You think so? Oh man, that is.
Ooh.
You know, I mean, I don't know. I could. It's not like if they let me work like a human being, yeah, then maybe I can go and do it. You know, maybe 4 or 5 hours at a time. You know, with a nice little break. little sandwich or something, you know. When you gotta work all day, it's too much, man. You know, it's just like when you finish a day at work and you come home and you sit in a chair, and then it takes you like 15 minutes to stand back up from that chair. I mean, you might be working too hard.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, he's fucking stoned. Oh yeah. You know what it is? He was so tall that he actually bought a house for giants, but he bought a giant house that's just a little too big for him. So now, giant house is a little too big for him. Do. Yeah. Meow, 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 meow. Not personally. It's hard to do that in this big city. I usually just go down the street and buy them. Or get them in nice plastic bags, like with filled with preservatives. Thanks for the subscription. Basement garden. Could be. Oh, I'm in the basement. Some growth light. Something to think about.
Pull it out your ass there, Crikey.
All the stuff's coming out of my body. Throw away words with no meaning. Think before the next time you speak. Stow away the inner demons. And watch them eat you up till you're weak. I know it's not your fault.
Zachariah Sitchin's, well, the aliens advised them.
Well, I
that's
don't
a
need
lot.
to. I tell you this.
Stow away those big decisions. Take a step back to see who sets the choice. Throw away your inhibitions. And look deep inside for your own voice. I know you owe the world. But you owe yourself too. My father's side of the family is English. My father's side. But I got that speech impediment. I got that speech impediment. I got that. Constantly weighing one's considerations against his desires in the face of the shared space. We just can't grow in the land that is owned if they're willing to learn how to space out or dry erase. A lot of wondering what's going on. Positivity Just meow it. Yeah, I hear you on that one. That's where we're at now. This is from 2017. I thought I was such a philosophical writer.
We're living life here inside our heads, in spite of truth, in spite of you. With the choices inside our head, no matter what we choose, we stand to lose. Hear these voices inside our heads, there's right and wrong, but wrong feels right. If we feel what it be to be dead, we're scared to live, we're scared to die.
Bubbles. I wrote this song 11 years ago too, so is that. Yeah. You'll never hear me sing that note again. If you're as real as they say, better look up and plan for 2021. I was thinking more of the same. What do you think about that? You think it's a good plan? See what happens. Let's see what happens. Stream all available. Was this right now? Or this was earlier today. Oh yeah, this was earlier today. Look, we were watching Dogs and Cats earlier today. Drinking some iced tea right there. We had a good time earlier today. I gotta say, it was a good time earlier today. Another pandemic. I'll be honest with you, my life didn't change a whole lot. I was living a very reclusive lifestyle. And I still do. You're right, I don't people much. My circle of people that I see in real life is very, very small. It's a very small group of people. Yeah, but you know what? I'm okay with it. I enjoy what I enjoy. And when I do get to people... I understood what you were saying. I understood. Yeah, I'll take you way back. You know, it kind of happens if you're working and you're just trying to You know, you have to keep moving to maintain. But fortunately, I don't have a whole lot of stuff, so I could run my shit very tight, so I don't have to work so much, and still at least be somewhat comfortable. Not perfectly comfortable, but for the moment, it's manageable. And I just kind of sit around and think about what am I going to do next? What's the next chapter? And then people say, what are you going to do next? And I say, more of the same. I do want change, though. But I recognize that change sometimes is best when happening gradually. Oh, for sure. So sometimes you have to find ways to not be comfortable, just to keep yourself, if you need a certain level of focus or discipline. Like, as much as I like smoking the weed, it kind of puts me in too much, makes me too comfortable. And it ends up me being frustrated when I have to be uncomfortable in other aspects of my life. But that isn't to say that I know the dose. The right amount of elevation or de-elevation, but sometimes not perfect either. You know, the way I've always been, I'm always reluctant to do things until I actually start doing things, and then it's like it's momentum. But I don't do a whole lot to gain momentum in a lot of ways. I haven't in many years. I'm just kind of straggling along, letting things happen at a slower pace, I guess. I could agree. I can kind of agree with that sentiment. The time to be working is when you're younger. If you have the capacity to go and earn and sacrifice time in exchange, you'll get that time later. At least if you just try, I guess. There's no guarantees that you will. But I agree with that sentiment because I'm more anxious when I'm not doing things. When I'm working more, I'm actually doing better. When I'm physically moving around, thinking and working and putting effort into something, it actually it helps with the other aspect of my life. Keeps me in shape. Oh, yeah. It does, you know, money gives you opportunity. But I think for me, because I've resolved to have a kind of I don't want to say closed off life. But something simple. Yeah. I wish I could just go to work and be naturally, you know? There are certain positions I can work where I am that way. Like if I'm working the cashier position, I could do a lot of things and it doesn't fuck me up too much. Because I'm not handling a lot of weight. I'm working more with my mind than with my body. Checks and balances. But if I'm making pizza, then my shoulder starts to hurt, my hand starts to hurt. If I'm cutting cheese, my wrist starts to hurt, you know? Just something, you know. It's a result. It's my physical capacity. No problem, lad. You get an email from me soon. I'll hook you up. Let me see what the photo is. In fact, I'll do it right now. Take it easy. Check your email in the morning. Why do you like this? I don't know. Why do I'm not doing that?
Great figures create history, no matter the field in which the individual's talents have become famous. Today, we will talk about one of these people.
Sugar Ray Leonard, the new middleweight champion of the world in the single most stunning upset in boxing history.
He's fighting with the utmost, what I call, clarity. He sees everything. He's quick at everything. He's a great fighter at the peak of his career.
Sugar Ray Leonard was one of the world's leading boxers of the 70s and 80s. His skill, combined with his bright personality and charisma, made him a star, right when the sport needed a new hero. The era of Muhammad Ali was drawing to a close, and the young Sugar Ray Leonard wanted to follow in the footsteps of his idol in the heavyweight division.
Extensively about how this man influenced you as a boxer. Why don't you talk to them about it?
Well, it's no big secret that I emulate Muhammad and Sugar Ray Robinson because they transcended the sport of boxing. They brought entertainment to a sport that was highly criticized because of the nature of the sport. And I'd like to take this time to thank Ali because he made it possible for me and Mike to be in this position.
Chapter 1: Birth of a New Champion. This future boxing legend was born on May 17, 1956, in Rocky Mount, North Carolina. Leonard was a shy child. He often sat at home reading comics and playing with his dog. At a young age, Ray revealed his vocal talent, which allowed him to sing in the church with his two sisters on weekends. Ray was always taciturn. We could never guess what he was thinking, but I never had any problems with him. I was never called to the school, said Leonard's mother. At the age of 14, following his brother's instructions, Ray started boxing. His father and older brother also excelled in this sport, but each in their own way. At the time, Ray and his family lived in a poor suburb of Baltimore. Once, two local trainers saw this talented guy and began to train him. In his early years as a fighter, Leonard showed skills and grace in the ring. He fought and excelled against boxers whom he encountered in the ring. In the end, he received the nickname Sugar, the same as that of legendary boxer Ray Robinson, who was considered one of the most skilled technical boxers of all time. Ray quickly achieved incredible success in the amateur ring. Leonard held his first amateur fight in 1972. And from 1973 to 1974, he took part in the National Welterweight Tournament in Golden Gloves and won. In 1974, in the final battle of the Golden Gloves Tournament, he defeated Hilmer Kenty, the future world champion. A year later, in 1975, they took part in 3 national tournaments in the USA and won a gold medal at the Pan American Games. Montreal, Canada, 1976, the Olympic Games. The pinnacle of his sporting victories was the victory at the 1976 Montreal Welterweight Olympics, where he easily won a gold medal, defeating all of his rivals. Before the final fight, Ray was considered an outsider. His rival was the Cuban puncher Andres Aldama. Even before the start of the battle, Leonard had won the hearts of the crowd of spectators and national television audiences, with a photograph of his son taped to his sock. During the fight, Ray himself dramatically overcame a severe pain in both hands in order to win by a unanimous decision 5-0. After winning the Olympics with a gold medal, Leonard announced his intention to leave boxing, claiming that he had fulfilled his old dream. But life had other plans. Ray originally wanted to go to Harvard to become a lawyer, but the plan failed when it turned out that Juanita Wilkinson, the mother of his illegitimate son, filed a paternity suit in an attempt to obtain alimony from Ray. It was also about that time that Leonard's father became very ill, and his family was in dire need of money. There was no time to wait. It was necessary to act. In the end, the 20-year-old Ray decided to go professional. As a result of his amateur career, he already had a record of 165 victories, of which 75 were knockouts and only 5 defeats. Chapter 2: Ascent.
Wow.
In those years, for an American boxer, winning a gold medal was an almost guaranteed path to the pros. His coach was Angelo Dundee, who was known for working only with the most talented boxers of those years, including Muhammad Ali, Carmen Basilio, George Foreman, and other superstars. Everything came together as it should for Ray. The right time filled with great fighters and the best coach. All that was required of him was to win. Leonard's debut in the professional ring took place in February 1977 against the sturdy Puerto Rican boxer Luis Vega. By a unanimous decision, Ray won in a landslide victory on points. At the very beginning of his journey, Leonard performed as part of the first welterweight to 63.5 kilograms. But after a few fights, he rose to welterweight. He passed opponents of medium caliber without any problems, gaining more and more experience with each fight. It is worth noting that at any moment, many rivals said that they were impressed in the first place by Ray's speed, with which they could not cope in any way. The beginning of his career was not as simple as many thought. In 1978, Leonard, in the first round, knocked out Javier Muniz. After a couple weeks, Ray defeated the brother of the now famous manager named Bobby Heyman. This fight set a record for attendance in the closed arena of Maryland. More than 15,000 people came to watch the boxing match. The winning procession continued over the next 2 months, where Ray won 2 victories over Randy Milton and Rafael Rodriguez. On July 18, 1978, Ray scored another victory by unanimous decision over Dickie Eklund. Providence, USA, 1978. Sugar Ray Leonard versus Floyd Mayweather Sr. The first serious test for Ray after a 2-month break was a confrontation with the strong Floyd Mayweather Sr. At the time, Sugar was already in the top 5 of the WBA organization, and Mayweather wasn't even in the top 10, but he was number 6 in the welterweight rating from The Ring.
Mayweather with the red stripes.
The larger Floyd started to fight in the lead and was bolder than Ray. In addition, he was a strong guy that skillfully combined defense with attacks, and therefore it was not easy to get to him. Mayweather was betting on his powerful right-handed cross. The fight was very intense.
Now in pursuit of Mayweather. See him go to the belly and then up to the head.
But in the 3rd round, Leonard still shocked his opponent.
Scored heavily. Now
Wow.
Mayweather stunned. Now he's a sitting duck. But he covered well.
In the last minute of the 8th round, he knocked Floyd down twice. Mayweather's signature shoulder protection did not protect him from the precise left swings. Ray did just fine.
Pulls the shuffle. Now you're seeing the Sugar Ray Leonard we've become accustomed to. I don't know if he'll...
In the middle of the 10th round, Floyd was again shocked, and the referee stopped the match.
And Ray would like to finish him off. He almost went down then from a left. The shuffle. Now the flurry combinations. Martin Tabor is giving him a standing 8 count. Now it's called a technical knockout. Tabor says Mayweather has had enough. Hank Brooms.
Leonard's next appearance in the ring was less than a month later. Ray fought almost every month, which allowed him to quickly rise to the top of the world rankings. In 1978, he fought 11 fights. Springfield, USA, 1978. Sugar Ray Leonard versus Armando Muniz. In late 1978, he was confronted with the formidable Armando Muniz, who had previously claimed the welterweight world title 4 times and recorded his name in the history thanks to his 2 epic battles with Carlos Palomino. At the time, Ray was already a contender for the championship title, but for this title, Carlos Palomino was in no hurry to give him a chance. The fight with Muniz went ahead. Sugar Ray worked on his moves and knitted a dangerous rival up close. Ray was faster and more accurate from the very first round, which created big problems for his opponent. In the 2nd round, Muniz accelerated the pace, but he still couldn't catch the fast-moving Leonard. From the 3rd round, Armando managed to make some good combinations up close. and the second half of the round showed off a spectacular exchange of blows. In round 4, Leonard began to work mainly over long distances, where he felt more confident. Armando Muniz continued to pursue him and had some small successes, but Ray was better. At the end of round 6, he shook Muniz. This was one of Ray's hardest fights, dealing with Muniz's famous right-handed punches, but it still ended in a victory for Sugar Ray. Ray won several more victories, including one in the first middleweight. And in April 1979, he met with another strong contender, Adolfo Viruet. It was the first left-handed rival he had fought in his career. In the 4th round, Viruet missed a right cross, and for the first time in his career was knocked down. At the end of 10 rounds, Sugar Ray Leonard celebrated a victory by unanimous decision. In May of that year, Leonard fought as part of the first middleweight division. His opponent was former champion in Mexico from the state of California, middleweight champion Marcos Geraldo. In Baton Rouge, USA, 1979, Sugar Ray Leonard versus Marcos Geraldo in a fight for the middleweight title. Sugar Ray defeated the much larger Geraldo in a spectacular duel by a decision of the judges. Looking a little ahead, in 1982, Leonard was diagnosed with a retinal detachment. In his 2011 biography, The Big Fight, My Life in the Ring and Beyond, Ray shared the opinion that perhaps this injury was caused by his duel against Marcos Geraldo. Chapter 3, The New Muhammad Ali. At this stage of his career, Leonard was already contending for fights with WBC champion Wilfred Benitez, as well as with Roberto Duran, who had managed to get out of the middleweight and was successful. But despite the vivid performances of Sugar himself, he had his critics. He was mainly criticized for his lack of striking power. In the ring, Sugar Ray Leonard was a boxer without pronounced flaws. He was not a hard knockout, but he had a pretty strong blow. He worked perfectly with his front hand, acted very accurately, analyzed his opponent well, and he could make adjustments to change the course of the battle in his favor. Sugar could deliver a series of 6 or more blows in an instant and was widely known for his sharp, explosive high-speed attacks. His skill, combined with a bright personality and charisma, made him a star right when the sport needed a new hero. The era of Muhammad Ali was drawing to a close, so comparisons with Ali were inevitable. The well-known sports commentator Howard Cosell even called Leonard the new Muhammad Ali. As with Ali, Ray's fans split into 2 camps, those who loved him and those who felt like he was arrogant. For some, the nickname Sugar Ray seemed the height of arrogance. Ali's followers defended Leonard, calling Sugar self-confident, because like Ali, Sugar confirmed his boast in the ring. Thanks for watching this video, part 1 of Sugar Ray. Be sure to subscribe to the channel. Great figures create history, no matter the field in which the individual's talents have become famous. Today, we will talk about one of these people.
This Olympic gold medalist of the 1976 Games, he is a 6-time world champion in 5 different divisions. Ladies and gentlemen, introducing the WBC Super Middleweight Champion of the World, Sugar Ray Leonard.
After defeating Tony Chiavarini and Pete Ronzani, Leonard meets with Andy Price in a WBC qualifying fight for the right to face the champion Wilfred Benitez. Andy Price promised to surprise everyone and defeat Leonard. That eventful evening of boxing saw several boxing stars in the ring. Larry Holmes defended the title against Ernie Shavers, with undercard fights featuring Roberto Duran, Wilfredo Gomez, and Jimmy Young. Among all this variety of stars, Leonard managed to throw a bright but rather short performance. At the end of his first round, he brutally knocked out Andy Price at the ropes, after which he could not get to his feet for a long time. At the initial stage of his career, Sugar Ray Leonard won 25 victories, 15 of which were knockouts, and now he was facing a fight for a full champion title. Las Vegas, USA, 1979. Wilfred Benitez versus Sugar Ray Leonard. The fight with Benitez for the WBC title was a clash of two boxing geniuses. For Benitez, the meeting with Leonard was his second defense of the WBC welterweight title. The Puerto Rican was undefeated and was much more experienced than Leonard, although he was 2 years younger. Benitez rarely prepared for fights for more than 2 weeks. Nevertheless, that fact did not stop him from defeating the best fighters in the super lightweight and welterweight divisions. But in the case of Leonard, the difference in physical power affected the outcome. It was the moment of truth. Two similar fighters met at the ring, fast, talented, and trained. As Ray later remembered, in this fight, I was looking in a mirror. Sugar wisely used his advantage in arm's length. Using a powerful and irritating jab, constantly pushing to shock his opponent, Leonard managed to impede the Puerto Rican's right hand, who was forced to maintain a defensive posture. Sugar was not inferior to Benitez in speed, and his tactics for the battle were much more successful.
Wow.
At the end of the third round, Ray knocked down his opponent with a quick left hook to the chest. From round 4, Benitez began literally copying his opponent. Most of the fight took place in the center of the ring. Leonard continued to pull the champion out with false movements, but both boxers missed a lot in their attacks.
Wow, that's a good fight.
In round 6, during a mutual clash of heads, Wilfred received a bleeding cut on his forehead. In the 11th round, in an exchange of blows, Leonard shocked Benitez more than he had before. The 15th round of the battle took place head-to-head and turned out to be very brutal. "30 seconds before its completion, Wilfred Benitez was knocked down after a short finishing move. At 6 seconds before the end of the fight, the referee stopped the fight. The stop looked premature, but there was no doubt about Sugar's victory. He confidently dealt with one of the best boxers in the world, and at the time, as time will show, one of the greatest boxers of those times. Sugar Ray Leonard became the WBC World Welterweight Champion. This was followed by the defense of the title against Dave Boy Green, whom Ray knocked out in the third round. After a brilliant mid-range combination, and again the crown left hook, which decided everything in the match. Leonard hits the right hook so that his left shoulder goes back, and a terrible left hook follows from there. The right hand acts as a reverse. It is obvious, but Leonard was able to do everything in the ring and at all distances. However, the next opponent managed to be a difficult challenger for Sugar Ray. Montreal, Canada, 1980. Sugar Ray Leonard versus Roberto Duran. Coming from a lightweight division, Roberto Duran at the time had already managed to win many welterweight victories, including a victory over ex-champion Carlos Palomino. Duran was not just a great fighter, he was a hellishly great one. At the time of the battle with Leonard, this Panamanian had more than 70 professional fights and was defeated only once, and twice had a rematch and won. Roberto was the epitome of Latin American machismo, a difficult childhood, street fighting, a ruthless, fearless, courageous, and trained fighter that was a heavy hitter. This image associated with primitive aggression was the opposite of the smart, sophisticated, and elegant Leonard. Two famous promoters, Bob Arum and Don King, co-organized this event. The fight took place on June 20th, 1980 in Montreal, Canada, the same place where Ray Leonard took Olympic gold 4 years earlier. The fight was intense and witty from the very beginning. In the starting round, Duran indicated his intentions to work close. Leonard acted in response. In the middle of the second round of the fight, Duran shocked the American with a left hook. Roberto sought to push his opponent to the ropes in order to get in front of Leonard and worked with powerful strikes from both hands. And this appeared to be a successful strategy. Leonard himself was not opposed to this style of head-on fighting. In the third round, it became clear that he did not intend to box from a distance. Sugar accepted a power battle, and then the meeting was saturated with exchanges of aggression and anger, for which the fight was later nicknamed the Montreal Massacre. Ray spent most of the fight with his back on the ropes, locked in close combat. Roberto Duran won the victory by unanimous decision. On average, he struck 61 blows per round, of which 21 hit their target. And on average, Sugar struck 51 blows per round, of which 18 landed. New Orleans, USA, 1980. The rematch fight between Roberto Duran and Sugar Ray Leonard. Such a fight was needed by Leonard at this stage of his career, and he welcomed and trained hard for this rematch, which was anticipated by his fans. The same could not be said about the new champion Duran, who gained a lot of extra weight during the celebration of his previous victory in his homeland of Panama. 6 months later, in November 1980, the long-awaited revenge match took place. Duran barely kept in weight and could not maintain the desired pace of the battle. Leonard, on the contrary, freed himself and began to move more on his feet, provoking the champion to attack.
We haven't seen any of that tonight, really.
Grabbing the advantage in the initial rounds, Ray began to scoff at his counterpart, using his favorite technique, moving his right hand and punching with his left. Duran was angry, but this time he could not do anything about his opponent. He did not have the time to act in response, and this was a decisive factor in Leonard's victory.
Trouble in the corner tonight is not staying glued to the ropes. You said to me before the fight today that you see Leonard fight at long range. You see left to the head, left to the body, takes a left, right, left. Terrific hand speed of Sugar Ray. Leonard speared him, and down he goes on a slipping.
They will bother Duran. That was a good one by Sugar Ray. It's not over yet, and he's messing around. He should be taking.
Duran is smiling. Look at him. Sugar Ray is taunting Roberto Duran like Ali.
He said he would beat Duran. Good combination.
Suddenly. Look at that. The kid Gavilan Volo.
Good right hand by Duran.
30 seconds before the end of the 8th round, Duran refused to continue the fight, according to the referee, who told the fighters in Panamanian, "Fight." Duran responded in Spanish, but he replied, "No mas." This phrase will be forever associated with his remarkable sports career. The scandalous situation of the battle was immediately overgrown with many tales. By the way, this year a documentary was released about the confrontation, which was called No Mas. Ultimately, Sugar Ray Leonard regained the world title. Duran himself, in the ESPN documentary, said that he did not pronounce the words No Mas, as if the commentator had invented it. Roberto said he suffered from digestive problems due to food he had consumed the day before. According to him, he was eager to finish the fight in the 5th round.
The new champion, Sugar Ray Leonard, regains his throne. The winner, Sugar, got a microphone.
In 1981, Leonard, in an aggressive manner, defeated 3 career fighters. The first was left-hander Larry Bonds. After carrying out a successful voluntary title defense against Larry, Leonard rose in the welterweight for a fight with the unbeaten WBA champion, Ugandan boxer Ayub Kalule. Sugar was scheduled to fight the WBA welterweight champion Thomas Hearns, but Ray decided to fight first with Ayub. The 25-year-old Ray did not give the African southpaw a chance in the ring. Kalule and his team had tried to anticipate Leonard's techniques, but he surprised them by choosing to fight up close instead. Kalule pushed Sugar and alternated blows. In the 4th round, Leonard went ahead. It seemed that he was striking with every blow and eventually managed to slightly shake the opponent and give the fans a very exciting end to the round.
Wow.
He went for the gamble. That could be dangerous.
Damn. Wow.
The fight was intense and competitive.
What a
seconds. Doc, I noticed Leonard is carrying his hands pretty low.
I've got it 6-1 and 1.
Good combination by Going into his shots now.
And landing from close quarters. And would like to end it in the 9th round.
I think all those furries took a lot out of Ray there, Marv. Leonard is not.
In the last seconds of the exciting round 9, Ray sent Kalule to a knockdown. He rose, but the referee decided to stop the fight. After the fight, the African admitted that he himself asked the referee to intervene. Sugar Ray Leonard became the champion in 2 weight categories. Las Vegas, USA, 1981. Sugar Ray Leonard versus Thomas Hearns. During the time that Leonard fought twice with Duran and was rising into a new weight category, the new superstar Thomas Hearns was maturing. Under the leadership of Emanuel Stewart, this tall boxer had become a real hitting machine. Thomas's rise to the world of professional boxing was so rapid that in just a couple of years he became the first USBA fighter to knock out the long-playing WBA champion Jose Cuevas. 3 times he defended his title and seemed invincible. A unifying battle with Leonard was inevitable. At the end of 1981, this big fight took place. The number 1 and number 2 fighters of the rating crossed gloves in the ring. The start of the battle turned out to be difficult for our hero, and Hearns won the first round due to excellent actions with the front hand and a series of honed combinations. He had a much longer reach than Leonard, and this affected the beginning of the battle. It was important for Sugar to endure the hellish beginning in order to be able to turn the tide of the battle, which Leonard did. In the middle of the 13th round, Sugar managed to shake Hearns with a right hook. He went on to finish and sent the enemy under the ropes.
Leonard all over him. Leonard pounding away with combinations inside. Hearns trying to grab him. Can't do it. Hearns driven into the ropes. Leonard pounds him right through the ropes. Davy Pearl, he's not counting. He's not counting.
The referee did not consider this to be a knockdown, however.
Hearns getting up, shaking his head like he's not. A left hand scored by Leonard and a right behind it. Hearns battered around the ring, won't go down. What a flurry by Sugar Ray Leonard, and again Hearns trying to hold on, but he can't get a grip on him.
Yeah.
A right hand by Leonard, and a left. Missing with the right as Hearns sprawls through the ropes. Davy Pearl this time counting, Gil.
But after another finishing touch from Ray, Hearns hung on the ropes, but he was saved by the bell. In round 14, Leonard, acting as a predator, continued to look for opportunities for the knockout.
There he is, back into the body again. Beautiful bust. Big right hand. Hearns staggers along the ropes.
And in the middle of the round, he found the strength and again shocked Thomas with a right uppercut. Soon after, several more punctuated blows by Ray caused the judge to stop the fight, fixing the victory by technical knockout. It should be noted that at this point, Hearns was a serious leader on the cards of all 3 judges. Sugar Ray did what only the great fighters could do: find a solution to a difficult situation and gain victory over a real welterweight monster. Ray Leonard became the absolute world champion, and his fight with Thomas Hearns was named the Fight of the Year in 1981, according to The Ring. Later in 1996, this fight would be considered 9th in the list of the greatest fights of all time. As a result, Leonard combined all the titles and became the best boxer in the world, regardless of weight category. This is the second part of our series on Sugar Ray Leonard. If you enjoyed this series, please like and subscribe so you won't miss any updates. Stay tuned.
I knew
before the fight began if I was going to win or lose. I knew that in the dressing room because I would look in the mirror. And if I saw Sugar Ray Leonard, I could beat Mike Tyson. If I saw Ray Leonard, then it's going to be a rough night. Aldous Adames for the gold medal. Aldous Adames, my opposition, had just annihilated everyone. He sent fighters to the hospital, on stretchers. The general consensus felt that I shouldn't have been no contest to Aldous Adames. I tell you one thing, I remember that night before the fight. I didn't get much sleep, but I thought about that fight, and I kind of choreographed it in my head, how I should win, how I can win, and it all happened. That year, 1976 in Montreal, was a time in my career that I'll never forget. It wasn't about being famous or making money. It was about representing myself and my country. I was fighting for the most valuable prize in the world, and that is the Olympic gold medal. Nothing compares to that. Someone can say I was world champion professionally. I was this, I was that. But being an Olympic gold medalist, that speaks volume. Dick Eklund. Very unorthodox, very confident, very kind of crazy guy who later became my friend. He didn't care who I was because at that time I won all my fights. He wasn't that easy to beat. I think there is a question about did he knock me down. I actually slipped.
Now Leonard is down. Let's see if that's a knockdown. And Eklund just walked over it.
It wasn't the fact that physically he was tough. He was just tough mentally. He never gave up.
Is Eklund down again? Eklund is down.
He tried the best he could, but it was more so experience over talent. But he's a tough son. He was a tough son of a bitch. Pete Ranzani. If you look at him, he doesn't look that. He doesn't look that fearful. He was kind of a skinny. Well, he was skinny, very very skinny guy. But he was, he used everything to his fullest. His height advantage, his speed, his style. Actually, I beat him in the amateurs, so I knew of him. I knew about him. It was a good fight. I learned from that. I learned from every fight, but I learned from that fight too. To throw punches until the guy's down. Continue to throw punches until the guy's down. And never take anyone for granted. Wilfred Benitez. Competing against Wilfred Benitez, who was the youngest champion ever, 17 years old, world champion. He was one of my most difficult fights, along with the championship being on the line. I never missed so many punches in my life. I threw punches left and right. I had pretty fast hands, and out of maybe 12 punches, maybe 3 will land.
Leonard going right at Benitez here in round one. Whipping right hand. Missing with most.
He was so elusive. He was never a stationary target. He had that natural God-blessed talent that he could feel a punch and slip it. That fight was so tough that I went to the hospital late that night because of dehydration. Because I beat him. I beat Benitez with talent, yes, but more so with my heart. I never gave up. I never stopped throwing punches.
Leonard steps in with a left. And he stops it. Carlos Bonilla stops it with 6 seconds to go. 1976, gold medalist Sugar Ray Leonard, the new WBC World Welterweight Champion.
Even when I'm exhausted, if I get you hurt, I could come on strong like it was just the first round. We're stronger than we really are, but you have to really dig deep. And it hurts. It does hurt. But to win is what it's all about. To win. Roberto Duran. Roberto Duran, I used to hate that son of a bitch. I love him now, we're friends. Yeah, my very first loss. Duran taught me, or showed me, or displayed to me how important the mind is. And he said things about me, he cursed me out, he cursed my wife out. It worked because he got under my skin. He got into my head. I said, you know what, I'm going to beat this guy at his own game. And that was when the problem started because I wanted to beat him at his own game, which is standing toe-to-toe and banging away, as opposed to using the ring, using my hand speed, using my height. But I wanted to get at this guy because he disrespected me.
Sugar Ray Leonard at his best. He's trading punch for punch with Duran.
Around the third, fourth round, he hit me, and he he rocked me. I mean, he almost knocked me down. They called Roberto Duran the Hands of Stone, Manos de Piedras. And he hit me, and I even turned around and said, who else was in this damn ring? His power was unimaginable. He was perpetual motion.
Leonard bombing away, and Duran thinks he has won the fight. I can't believe it. The bell. It's over.
After the fight, which I lost in 15 rounds, went to my hotel, and a doctor came by and drew blood from my ear because you break the blood vessels in your ears become cauliflower. That kind of pain was even worse than the punches. I was going to retire. I thought about retiring because I said, I can't deal with this anymore. But the fighter in me said, after a few days of rest, I said, I want a rematch as soon as possible, and I made that happen. Roberto Duran 2. Now, that's what I want to talk about. I want to talk about that fight. And this time I was going to box him, outpoint him, use my hand speed, use the ring.
Duran is watching a different Leonard in the first minute.
Good right hand by Leonard.
He said he'd be aggressive this time, and boy, is he.
Good right hand.
Left and right, but here comes
Good right hand by Leonard.
They're in close.
They're really fighting.
Looking back on my first fight, there was so many distractions to me. The guys were coming to me at training camp. Can I get the car wreck? Can I get this? Can I get that? I was there to train, but I ended up, it was like a vacation for some of my friends and relatives. The second fight, I trained hard. I stayed focused. I stayed in the zone. That makes a huge difference in the outcome of the fight. Duran is not as aggressive as he was in the first fight because I was using my footwork and my hand speed. And you'll notice he was almost like puzzled. There was like a question mark on his face, like what's going on here? What is he doing? And humiliation because I kind of stuck my chin out a little bit and did a little bit of this. Pow. Yeah, it works.
Doing a little dodging now, and a little Ali. He's taunting Duran. Look at that.
I learned to get inside his head as opposed to him getting back inside my head. And also the public or the fans were laughing because I was doing the bolo punches, sticking my chin out, because it was like a bully. He was like a bully. And a bully would do one or two things if challenged. He would punch you out or he would run away. And Duran ran away. I love you, Roberto. Anyway, that's my take.
Sugar Ray in the ropes, it gets away immediately. And what's happening? Duran says no. I think he's quitting. What is he saying, Larry?
He says no, I don't understand.
He's saying no, he quit.
I don't understand this.
That was a bizarre fight, bizarre ending, and people still talk about it, naturally. But it was one of my favorite fights. Tommy Hearns. My fight against Tommy Hearns, my God, that was one of the most significant fights of my entire career. I was the WBC champion, and Tommy Hearns was a WBA champion. And back then, there was only 2 or 3 boxing bodies. Tommy Hearns, again, he was one of those guys who, like Roberto Duran or Aldo Adames, annihilated his opponent, just knocked him cold. And they thought when we met that Tommy would beat me because Tommy stands 6'2", arms longer than a football field, knockout power in both hands. Tommy had a heart of a gladiator, a warrior. I think I would say majority of everyone figured that I had no chance against Tommy. I tell you what, it was one of my toughest fights, if not the toughest fight in opposition that I faced. When the first bell rung, I was trying to get inside. I couldn't get him because his arms were so quick. His reach was so incredible. And he closed my left eye so I could barely see. It was over 100 degrees in the ring. It was so hot. I finally hurt Tommy in the 4th, 5th round, I believe it was.
Hearns may have been hurt. There's the right hand. There's a hook.
You don't know what it's like to be in a ring against someone so great as a Tommy Hearns. It wasn't until Muhammad Ali told me many years ago, he said, Ray, when I fought Joe Frazier, it was the closest thing to death. And I didn't quite understand that. I couldn't digest that. The fight with Tommy Hearns, it was the closest thing to death because you're exhausted. You can't keep your hands up. You know this guy, if you give him a chance, would knock your block off. It wasn't until my trainer, Angelo Dundee, said, Ray, I think 11th or 12th round, he said, you're blowing it, meaning I'm losing.
You're blowing it now, son. You're blowing it.
That little pep talk, that little sound bite made a huge difference in the outcome of that fight. Because I got off the stool the next round, and I hurt him, and I rocked him, and I took him out.
Leonard has to fight a desperate fight. Good right hand. That weave was hurt again. There was that right hand. Oh! That nailed it. He has nothing left. He's going to be knocked out. Clear jumping the fight.
I received his belt. It was kind of a unification fight. Yeah, because I retired in '82. Yes, you're right. You're right, actually. I retired a lot of times. I think I was 25, 26. You know, people told me, you know, how happy I should be that I had the title, I'm famous. But it wasn't about that anymore. It wasn't about that. It was about my legacy. And you don't tell people you're the best. You let them tell you that they think you're the best by fighting the best guys out there. Kevin Howard. Kevin Howard, that was the first time I was knocked down. Wasn't hurt at all, because sometimes we get knocked down, and it's what they call a flash flood knockdown, which means you hit on the chin and you go down. Everything just crumbles, and there's no pain or anything.
I really believe that Sugar Ray Leonard right now thinks he can take him at any time, and a right hand from Kevin Howard puts Sugar Ray Leonard right on the seat of his pants.
But there are times you get knocked down, and all of a sudden when your legs become invited, that's when your mind says, okay, man, now we're not stable, so the guy's going to knock us out. It wasn't the case with Kevin Howard. I was more embarrassed than anything.
And there was the left hand, and Kevin Howard is about done here. That's it.
At the press conference, I said, guys, you know what? My mind and my body told me that it's over, and I retired for good. But then I came back because I saw who I felt was one of the greatest middleweight champions of all time, Marvelous Marvin Hagler. I wanted to see his fight. Hagler was fighting this guy named John the Beast Mugabe, and it was a pretty even fight in the early stages until Hagler came on strong, as he normally does, and destroys. And I just felt that I could beat him. I just felt, observing him, that I had the tools, if sharpened, to beat him. When I announced that I was fighting him, the whole boxing circle went crazy because my last fight I was knocked down by Kevin Howard. So people were concerned about my health, especially my eye. I had a partial detached retina. Majority, I would say 98%, felt that I had no chance. Rightfully so, because I haven't been active for quite some time, for years. Marvin Hagler. It was 5 days before the fight. I'm boxing. My sparring partner hit me, nearly knocked me out. My people, my guys, my team, on the ride back to my hotel, were silent. No one said a word because they felt that if I get hurt by a sparring partner, Hagler was going to kill me. And I got so upset that I called Mike Trainer. I said, Mike, they think I'm going to lose. I said, Hagler will not touch me. Because my original fight plan was to stand toe-to-toe. I boxed him, and I did what I did.
Leonard, the first punch of the fight. Leonard, a combination again.
It was that punch. Thank God it was because of that punch that I changed my style, the style that I thought was going to beat Hagler. And no one stands toe-to-toe with Hagler. No one.
Combination. Leonard got the better of that. Hagler peppering him. Leonard now tries to fight off the ropes. The crowd chanting Sugar Ray.
And new middleweight champion of the world, Sugar Ray Leonard.
Hagler was a beast in the ring. He was one of the guys who was in the best shape 100% of the times. Donnie Lalonde made an incredible comeback against Donnie Lalonde because there was a vacant super middleweight 168 title that was on the line. He was a good fighter, good champion, and I remember getting hit by him, and he hurt me so bad. I mean, the first punch, the first jab rocked me.
See that Leonard does not want to get close.
That's when I felt in my heart, and that was the only other time I should say, because Duran 1 was vicious, that I said, man, I don't need it. I wanted to quit in that ring. A part of me said I wanted to give it up. But then again, the real me said, no, we're going to see this thing through. When he knocked me down, I think it was like on the fourth, fifth round too, he just hit me. If you get hit or sideswipe on the side of your temple, your equilibrium is just out of whack. You can't stabilize yourself. And you just go down. You're not hurt. Well, I wasn't hurt. And I knew, I looked in his face, and the expression was, I'm going to get you the next round, or I'm going to finish you before this round is up. And he came out when the referee called us together, and he tried to take me out. and he threw a lot of punches that were not necessary or that missed. I would come back and I throw body shots, and it was a body shot that kind of stunned him. I can show how you. I can show you.
Yeah.
Tommy Hearns 2. That fight, there should have been a rematch years before. People all felt, the general consensus felt, the fight shouldn't even take place because they called Tommy Hearns a shot fighter, and they felt that I would just pound him out. But Tommy is a proud man, fighter, and I knew that he would be the different fighter when he fought me, trying to get me back. So by me having this, everyone telling me how easy it's going to be, it kind of made me not fear Tommy. You have to fear every man in the ring. And I got in that ring, I looked at Tommy, and he had the eye of the tiger, which I didn't have. And it became a tougher fight than expected. Tommy hit me and hurt me more times than the first fight.
Well, he may be aiming for a big right hand. Right to the jaw of Leonard. Leonard took it, but it was a big shot. And another one sends him down. The right hand in the ear of Leonard. Another one. And a left. Down goes Leonard with a combination from Hearns. Leonard looks hurt. Gets up, but he is hurting.
I just think that what took place in that ring was that I was more civilized. I was living the life of a star, and you can't have that. You can't have that voice in your head telling you, hey, when are we going home? When are we going to the party?
Leonard didn't move him, but it was a tough good leg hook back from Leonard.
Him dropped his right hand. Tommy dropped his right hand.
Watch the clock now, Tim. Tommy has nothing left. Right hand by Leonard, and Hearns in difficulty along the ropes. Another combination. The crowd is on its feet. What a war! What a fight!
I'd have to score it for Tommy Hearns.
I would agree. We've got Hearns the winner, but we'll see how the officials see it.
And it ended in a draw. I felt bad. I felt with that draw against Tommy Hearns, I felt I lost the fight. I really felt that. Who knows, man? But Tommy, I personally feel now, even watch the tape now, Tommy won that fight. I give him a point or two. Hector Camacho. One of the worst mistakes I've made in my life. You know, I actually felt that I could beat Hector Camacho, who was an incredible champion fighter. I don't know. I guess I was trying to save myself. That was kind of a bad area, bad timing for me. But the minute he hit me, the first punch, pow, was a jab, pow. And I said to myself, you know what, maybe I wonder if they care if we postpone this for a little bit.
First time in 6 years. I mean, he's been sparring hundreds of rounds. And more relaxed. A real John Saraceno watching. Oh, good stop there by Leonard. Leonard is down. Camacho landing. Bush Head should stop it now. It's time. There it is.
There he is. Great champion. Two real gentlemen.
My body said, hey, come on, man, give me a break. I faced some of the toughest oppositions in the world. My health is still great. I have great kids, great family, friends. I'm good. Let me reciprocate. Let me give back to the world, if you will. That's when I started my foundation with my wife for knocking out diabetes, type 1, type 2. I've been knocked down, but not out. Even to this day, I live my life like a fighter outside the ring. Don't believe people who tell you can't be this or be that, and give back, because I won those fights. And although it's a mano-a-mano, me against you, but I won that fight because I had a team, I had a corner. So always, give props to your friends and your corner, and don't ever give up.
No matter what happened in your life, you get a lot of love, Mike Tyson. Despite the color, where you're from, what happened, people